everybody. Welcome in on a Friday, July the 21st. Good afternoon, Michigan football. We're ready to kick this one off and get it underway as we're here ready to talk about the latest in Michigan sports. We got a couple good things for you brewing today. If you like Michigan football, I don't know, you like college football, we're going to let you take some shots, throw some darts, some verbal jabs at a national media member who has disrespected the maize and blue. We'll get to that coming up in 15 minutes from right now. But we're going to start talking a little recruiting with John Garcia Jr. from Rivals. And we will connect with John here. And then we'll talk about Jadyn Davis and how to, when you're a scout, you're a guru, you're an analyst, how you end up putting a player like Davis into the rankings. But first, I want to tell you about the Maize and Blue Review. That's why I'm here, and presented by Rivals.com. If you are dying, I mean, you're sitting down there counting down the days, you're dying for Michigan football, you feel like you're out in the desert, here is your oasis. It's the remedy. It's the Maize and Blue Review. You join up and you are fully informed, and you're entertained right up until kickoff and beyond with the latest and what's going on with the team, intelligence, recruiting, transfer portal. It's all there. What do we ask? We ask for you to try us out. We think you will like what you see. All right. Well, let's get to our guest, and that is John Garcia Jr. He is the national college football recruiting analyst for Rivals.com. And here he is joining us on this Friday. John, how are you?
I'm doing well. Happy to be here.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you. It's always great. We're getting closer to football, and, Michigan fans are really excited about the upcoming season. They're also excited about a quarterback commitment they got this year in Jadyn Davis. And I thought we'd start there. You saw him this summer. Do you remember the first time that you saw or heard about Jadyn Davis?
Yeah, I was going to say the first time I heard about him, he's probably in 8th grade. They're playing in South Carolina. We hear about this up and coming quarterback. Everyone's like, he's already 5'11", 6 foot. He's already physical. He's polished. And then you go see the kid. I think I saw him probably a year later. And yeah, he looks like the biggest 8th, 9th grade quarterback you've ever seen. And then you say, okay, well, if you start projecting this years down the line, this is going to be one of those guys, right? One of those polarizing names that is out there for several years to scout and sometimes over scout, I think, which is an issue in our industry. And here we are 4 years later, and he's coming off of a state title, coming off of the Elite 11 finals as this guy that we've known about for so very long. And I think it just creates a lot relative to that evaluation. You get a first impression that is unanimously positive because you're like, this kid's bigger than everyone. He's already slinging it. He's got velocity on the ball. You could tell there's a maturity there in his build and how he carries himself. And as he progresses years down the line and plays varsity football, you start to see others sort of catch up to Jadyn Davis. So it's a fascinating evaluation in terms of where we were with him a year or two ago and where he'll be in the final rankings come January, which is obviously still very much to be determined.
Yeah, you saw him this summer at the Elite 11, and they're, you mentioned the over scouting, and, I saw, some different evaluations, and I'd say, I don't know, all over the place, but, mixed reviews with Jadyn Davis. What did you see from Davis throwing at the Elite 11 against the other QBs?
Well, you got the congruence of those initial impressions, right? The build is really strong. I thought he came in right around 200 pounds. 6'1" or so very well put together relative to most juniors in high school football. And I thought the velocity looked really strong. I thought his short to intermediate stuff was really great. I thought you could just tell there's this polish, this ball distributor, point guard mentality in this kid. So when it came to spraying the ball around left, right, on the run, in the pocket, you could see the comfort. You could see the maturity there. I think where the opinions became a little bit more polarizing were when the kids were supposed to be uncomfortable. That's what the Elite 11 is all about, is making you go against the grain, rolling to your left, throwing across your body, throwing on time, 400 throws a day, whatever it is. It's designed to sort of wear you down. So I thought that's where you could see the opinions start to go up and down with really every quarterback. But I think Davis came in with such lofty expectations compared to most, to where you're almost already starting at the top and trying to peg him down thereafter. But again, the velocity looked good. I thought his ball distribution was phenomenal, up and down the field. But I think everybody had sort of those moments, particularly in the pro day workout, which is really the most scrutinized and even over scrutinized workout. I mean, I chart all 400 throws of that workout. So, I mean, I'm way too nitpicky than I probably should be on an event like that. But we do get to see some variance between the passers in that regard. And I think the other inhibitor for Jadyn was throwing motion. You know, he brings the ball a little bit further back than most quarterbacks, and he releases it a little bit lower than most quarterbacks. So at 6'1", it just creates a little bit of, oh, the first time you do see it live, or the next time you see it live, compared to some of the more classic over-the-top deliveries or three-quarter deliveries that we get across the country.
Yeah, and I could see if I put, I don't know, 25 analysts or gurus, whatever you want to say, watching quarterbacks. You know, once you talk about the size, you're going to look at the motion, and if it looks a little different, like, and you said, a classic delivery. I want you know, like, if this was 4 or 5 years ago, I think if I was there and the delivery looked a little different, I might be freaking out myself. But what I've seen is, you know, since Mahomes has really taken over and changed the game in the pros, that there's a lot of sidearm, different deliveries, different platform, and he looks like, watching some of his tape in games, that he does that. I don't really notice. I didn't see it, that Elite 11. Has his motion changed, or when you look at his junior tape, can you still see what you're talking about, what you saw this summer, maybe the, you know, different release point or whatever?
Yeah, look, I think every setting demands, you know, different abilities from these kids. If you are in a competitive setting like the Elite 11 and you want to put a little bit more juice on the ball, maybe you do drop the arm angle a little more. Maybe you feel more comfortable coming from your midsection than up here at different times. You know, you can't really put too much into those things. I remember a couple of years ago, Tyler Buckner had an awful Elite 11. His motion was so funky, and everybody was like, "What happened? This is a great quarterback," and he corrected it. You know, so I do think you take it for what it's worth. But you look, if you're going back to the junior tape, which, let's remind everyone, is the foundation of every evaluation. I don't want to make it seem like we're putting too much stock in the off-season events, although seeing them throw together is certainly important. You go back to the junior tape, you do see a little bit more conventional three-quarter delivery. Stepping up in the pocket, the timing really strong with Jadyn Davis. I mean, look, you can't put up, what was it, 3,000 yards, 72% completion percentage without being on time, especially in a Chad Greer offense down there in North Carolina. So he's checking most of the boxes. And look, he's still a 5-star for us at Rivals. I think we've probably got him ranked as high as anybody does in the industry for a reason. So you want to take the events and the settings for what they are, but you also want to kind of put it in a big body of work. So again, with Davis, we get this variance over 3 or 4 years, as opposed to other passers that were only scouting for 12 months. You know, so we get to over scout in some capacity with the Jadyn Davis type, because he was so heralded so young. And then maybe when we do see the variance in the throwing motion, it throws us off maybe more than it would for a guy who's a little bit newer to our radar.
All right, couple more minutes here with John Garcia Jr., National College Football Recruiting Analyst for Rivals.com. And you talked about over-evaluating or over-scouting, but can you talk about the challenges of evaluating and then ranking players all the way through from when you first see them and then to that, you know, that final January ranking? You know, how much do you put into what you see on tape when they're playing during the season, if you go see them live, and then at different camps or all-star games or whatever else, like the Elite 11? What are those challenges?
Oh, there's so many. Of course, everything you do gather is a data point, but you weigh those very differently. And it even has to do with the position. So quarterback, obviously, you're weighing everything. Every single thing you see, whether it's body language, his demeanor, the competitiveness, how in shape he is. I mean, you're weighing every single element you can with a quarterback because it's not as much about traits as it becomes about production and about what you do in between your ears. But other positions, if you're watching a defensive end or if you're watching a tight end, maybe a defensive back, it's so much driven by the traits. It's driven by the height, weight measurables, the speed, the length, the flash almost over the whole body of work like you would with a quarterback prospect. So obviously there's so many challenges. There's only, first of all, so many of us that do this. And when we compare notes, you get variance between us. So imagine trying to put all of this together in one snapshot. That's why I think the rolling evaluation updates every few months makes the most sense, right? Because if we are too lenient on a breakout season on the field or some off-field track times, or off-season track times, we can kind of correct that over time as we get through the end of their senior seasons, which is always the most important, into that final end of the season in between National Signing Day in December and February. We get into that crunch time. We can kind of make sure we're settled there at the end of it. But it's incredibly difficult because everybody ranks on a different scale. We try to use the NFL as our guide, if that makes sense. But obviously there's so much more availability when you're scouting at the NFL level than what we get. We've got to travel. We've got to weigh the competition. You've got to weigh the setting. You've got to weigh the system at times. So there are really so many undefined variables that it's purely an inexact science. But I think here at Rivals and elsewhere, I think the industry is getting better as we progress.
Well, it's good to hear that you're not just sitting back throwing darts out in the garage and like, all right, let's drop him. We got Gorney on the phone telling you, let's drop Davis because we got some other guys that could, that we could push up there. Hey, I appreciate your time. I got two quick questions for you, and they're about players, and they are guys that are interested in Michigan. I know you're down there in the Sunshine State, right?
Yes, sir.
Zaquan Patterson is a 5-star safety, from Hollywood, Florida. I know one of Michigan's commitments for 25, Chris Ewald Jr., a 4-star corner, I believe, is in the same high school. But, he says he likes Michigan. Do you think they got a shot?
I do think they got a shot. The longer this thing plays out, it's probably the better for a school like Michigan. He's about to take that return visit up to Ann Arbor, as you mentioned. And this is a very structured kid. He's a captain at Chaminade Madonna. He's very much methodical in his decision-making. So a well-organized approach, even a defensive-laden approach, as some would suspect with Michigan, is something that's going to appeal to him, even though it's probably the furthest school from home that he is considering at this point. But they absolutely have a shot, especially the longer this recruitment goes. The shorter, you probably lean a little bit more towards Miami, Florida State. Auburn feels pretty good right now. But the longer it draws out, particularly into the season, you feel better about Michigan's chances 100%.
All right, and one final one is David Sanders Jr., and that's a 25 recruit, a tackle. The good news is, he's at where Jadyn Davis is at, Providence State, in Charlotte, North Carolina. I think additional good news is Shannon Goodwin is his teammate who's a Michigan commitment. Maybe bad news is, Jordan Shipp. It doesn't mean it's automatic, that these guys are all going to follow Davis and Goodwin to Ann Arbor. But do you feel like Michigan has at least pretty good shot at maybe landing the best tackle in the class next year?
Look, they're right in the thick of it. You mentioned the obvious connections, and that matters. And I think what's shifted with recruits, particularly in the South and how they view Michigan, is the winning. Sometimes we get so caught up in NIL and all these other intricacies. Michigan has been in the playoff. Michigan has climbed over aggressively that Ohio State mountain in the Big Ten. That stuff really does resonate and matter with the Southern recruit, because it's about that exposure and that profile. How visible are you as a program? All of that stuff carries more weight, and that Michigan offer over the last 2-3 cycles, it's heavier when kids get it, which is why you see kids committing earlier. Chris Ewald, who you mentioned, might be the number 1 corner in the country next cycle, committed very early and has conviction in that verbal commitment, though of course he's young and there's other schools involved. So that matters a little bit more at Michigan right now. So it's a great time for them to pull further away from that classic Midwestern footprint, in my opinion.
Well, speaking of a great time, it was a great time talking with you, John. Continued success. Love your work. And it was great to have you on here on the Maize and Blue Review. Take care.
Thanks for having me. Talk soon.
All right. And there he is. of John Garcia Jr., the National Football Recruiting Analyst at Rivals. His information on the board, if you're listening on the podcast, at John Garcia _ Jr. For you, say Twitter fans, those recruiting fans, maybe all of you like that. I like a couple things that he had to say there. What's the biggest thing for Michigan continuing on being able to pull some of the top recruits in the country? Winning more than cash up front, a McDonald's sack of $100 bills on your way out on a visit, any other promises of a signing bonus. Winning. There's a saying in sports that winning cures all. Winning takes care of everything. It's a saying and a cliche because it's true. And yeah, winning. Keep that winning. I like how John also describes Michigan getting over the Ohio State mountain aggressively. There you are. Getting over the mountain aggressively. I didn't get that question in from Detroit Sports about who do you think Jadyn Davis's comp is in college or the league skill-wise. And Detroit answered his own question. Chris Leak from Florida had a columnist on a couple months ago from the Charlotte Observer and asked him for a comp, and he said Chris Leak, the championship quarterback for the Florida Gators back in the day. Tim Tebow was a freshman on that team. Tim Tebow did come in short yardage situations, goal line situations, and would do that Khalil Mullings jump pass, the Tebow jump pass. But Leak, I've seen that comp. I think the other comp for me now, Jadyn Davis is bigger. He's taller. But I think Bryce Young in that, he's not the, prototypical 6'3", throw the ball the length of the field. He's not, standing there like Joe Milton from Tennessee or anything. Young wasn't the, that gigantic QB. And he also wasn't, this like dart that you thought was going to take off. And he was still a pocket passer, Bryce Young. You think, wow, at that size, you'd think that he would be, as much as of a runner. But no, I mean, he was slippery. He was a Houdini. He had a great feel for the game, great feel in the pocket when he needed to. He was able to run. I think it's an easy one. It's just happened. He was his number one pick in the NFL draft. But, sometimes it's right there sitting in front of us. Let's just go ahead and, take that. And that's my comp. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm sitting right now when it comes down to it. Actually, I'm sitting right here in the studio. That's where I'm at. So a couple more minutes here for you to join in. We always appreciate folks watching this broadcast live. And if you are watching it live, you can participate in real time. You got a question, you got a point, we take it in real time. So Paul Finebaum, familiar with his work, ESPN, he had some things to say about Michigan. Let's take some shots at Finebaum. It's fun to do. He's an easy target, and he has put that target again right there. And if you have your computer, you can hit that screenshot. This would be a great picture to just go ahead and put up on your dartboard. Put Finebaum up at that bullseye and just keep blasting away. And then, if you miss, you hit the clown, you get way left. You hit me, you get way, way left. You might hit Richard, who's up on the screen there. But take your shots at Finebaum. You can say, well, what did he say this time? Well, that's a good question. What did he say this time? He said, he was asked, is there anyone who can stop Georgia this year, the two-time defending champs? And Finebaum immediately said, Alabama, the SEC. and Ohio State have a chance. And then after that, he said he would put USC as a wild card in terms of stopping Georgia. So no mention of Michigan. And if we sit here, like, here's part about it that can, make you mad. If you want to get mad, and I'll get mad here for a second. If you are thinking about teams right now that can beat Georgia, who you would say have the best chance? Alabama always has great talent. I'd see Alabama. I mean, I would point to Alabama myself. I don't know how much even more you'd have to say. I don't even mind saying Ohio State because they do have great talent, but not saying Michigan, who has their returning quarterback, who has aggressively taken Ohio State to the woodshed and scored consecutive knockouts. And the great Ohio State offense wasn't even able to score a touchdown on Michigan last year in their own stadium. So, Michigan deserves to be there. Now, look, he's, Paul Finebaum. So you could say, of course, he's going to leave Michigan out. But then to take the cake, he puts the softest team of all time as a wild card. Yeah, they got the Heisman Trophy winner, but they've got zero defense. The Ole defense of USC. I don't think that USC is going to make the college football playoff. I would love to see Michigan play USC in the college football playoff. I'll bet the house on Michigan. I'll take over 400 yards rushing. Michigan. They will pulverize Lincoln Riley's team if they got into the college football playoff. Wild card. So, no Michigan mentioned by Finebaum. Now, look, we all know what's going on here when it comes down to somebody like Paul Finebaum. He's just trying to rile us up. He did it. It worked. He got me a little bit riled up. So that's all I have to say. You can take your shots now before I give you a movie review. Detroit going back to Jadyn Davis. He sees the arm limitations. Young has the better arm. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen, I saw one pass that, he wasn't throwing to the moon in the Elite 11, but maybe you're right. You don't see the downfield bazooka from Jadyn Davis. That's what you're saying. I'm not saying that's fair. I mean, I know what you're talking about. P. Maximus. Nothing was worse than Finebaum hating on us last year. Yeah, well, I guess it depends how you look at it. I loved it, and then here he was all those years, and then Michigan was in the college football playoff. Even he had to sit there. And this is it when it comes down to media members that pick on Michigan or hate Michigan. That's all they do. Michigan. And there's plenty of people. Finebaum is one of them. Maybe he would still be successful and on ESPN, but there's no doubt that that's helped him along the way. That he's like the foil, like, pounding on Michigan has been great for his career. There have been many others, some right here in the state of Michigan, who have been able to use Michigan, and it's helped their careers by hating on Michigan. So I would say there was nothing better. And guys like this are doing a good job where if you thought about Michigan winning the championship this year and you say, well, I'd love to stick that championship pie right in Finebaum's face. If that's like one of the first things that you think of about winning it, not like, hey, I'm going to go celebrate and everything. But at some point, you're like, I just can't wait to fire off an email to this guy. He's got you emotionally riled up. I mean, that's the mark of a good entertainer. And that's what somebody like Paul Finebaum is. I know, he's go back and look, whatever. He's an entertainer. And he's doing a good job if he gets under your skin. And he's doing a good job if he riles you up. And that he's in your head. If you're thinking about when Michigan wins and, going down there, if you ran into him at an airport, you'd think, what, I might have to, I'm mild-mannered. 53-year-old man. But if I saw Paul Finebaum, would I go up and slam him in the face and say, go blue? I'd say, grab him, go in there, slap him around a little bit. No, I mean, so that's when you know a guy like that is getting to you. Detroit. Run first mentality does not work against the SEC or speed teams in hot weather. You know, at Detroit, I know you think that, and because, Michigan 2 years ago had trouble running the ball against the number one defense in the country in Georgia in the college football playoff game. And I don't think that it's like some crazy, Michigan, once they get against the SEC or the very elite team, whoever and it was Georgia 2 years ago, they weren't able to exert their will, impose their will against them. So it's not like you're saying something that I think is crazy. I saw Nick Saban 2 days ago, SEC Media Days. He was being interviewed on Finebaum's network. And the question to Saban was, you got a new offensive coordinator and Tommy Rees, and you're going to have a new quarterback, and you got to bake that cake and everything. And what Saban says, I'm going to paraphrase, but he said he's starting to use the Michigan model. What he said, and this is close to an exact quote, the worm is turning in college football, where teams want to possess the football, where teams want to be able to run the ball. Run the ball. Saban talking about college football flipping. And yeah, RPOs, still a big part, spreading the field, but the value of being able to line up and control the line of scrimmage. Nick Saban had that to say in the final day of SEC Media Days, that Alabama's going to get back to running the football. Michigan has shown the way. Now, look, Harbaugh was zigging while everybody else was zagging, and now everybody's looking like they do in the offseason. They're like, maybe we should be doing what Jim Harbaugh is doing. And that's what you do if you're a good college football player. I mean, you're looking at what works. Saban, we all know. I mean, we could make fun of him and just whatever else we want. Well, he's a successful coach. It's not been lost on Nick Saban what Jim Harbaugh is doing in Ann Arbor. JP thinks Paul's a bum. He let his hatred for Harbaugh get in the way of factual reporting. Well, this is where you messed up. He's not a reporter. When he's up there and he's asked a question, he's not reporting. He's giving his opinion. And if you want to be successful on TV or on the radio, and you want to draw 50 people in, or you want to draw 50% of people on this side, 50% on that side, you have strong opinions on teams. And then you know what works. Michigan hatred works for Paul Finebaum. So the part about you talking about him being a reporter or factual reporting, he may hate Jim Harbaugh. I think he loves Jim Harbaugh. As if he had a little buzzer for every time, that he talked about something interesting and it started going off, he'd talk about Southern Cal, or, he might talk about Ohio State, he'd talk about it. And then when he talked about Michigan, he would look over and the buzzer just keeps ringing. It's off the table. Nothing gives Paul Finebaum more clicks, more visibility. It is just off the charts when he talks about Michigan. So, of course, he's going to continue to do it. He's cornered the market on Michigan hate. There's no reporting going on from Paul Finebaum. When's the last time Paul Finebaum has reported on anything? He takes a bunch of calls from hillbillies on his show, talk about Tennessee and all that, and then he takes shots at other programs and other conferences across the country. That's what he does. I'm not hating on him. He's very successful. He's doing what works. Take a shot at him. He is a SEC shill to the extreme due to his salary loyalties. Yeah, I think there's part of that is true. But if he thought that he could just rag on, I don't know, let's take Alabama or Tennessee, and he got a lot of, a lot of pushback and hatred there, he would continue to do it. That's what's going on there. I actually don't think you're right. I mean, I don't know, he's a shill for the SEC, and I'm sure he could just say, look, the SEC's been the best conference in the last 25, 30 years. I mean, look at the championships won. What are you talking about? Of course I want to talk. And he's in SEC country. He's an SEC guy. So what should he start talking about, the Big Ten or something like that? You could say it's pretty obvious. I don't think the guys that pay for him pay his salary say, hey, you know what? Could you knock on Michigan a little bit? You got bang on Texas. Take some more. Those Michigan kids deserve credit, and Paul is just too SEC happy that he has to show his ass. Well, it's nice to see Michigan get some credit. Do they deserve, again, think about it as Paul Finebaum as an entertainer. You really want Paul Finebaum, who's been public enemy number one, to be I really like Michigan this year. I mean, he can't like everybody. You can't make everybody happy. And the fact that he could play this all the way out to the championship game, probably, where Michigan would have to beat Georgia before he would have to, tuck his tail and say, I begrudgingly got to give credit to Jim Harbaugh. That's a long way off. Along the way, that he could just sit here and ring the Michigan bell the whole time and discredit him and just have everybody worked up into a frenzy. And I don't think one Michigan player cares. I don't think they care about Paul Finebaum. If anything, they like it as it drives them and can say, and they're looking forward. Maybe after being up on the podium, maybe Jim Harbaugh will say, and Pete Finebaum, take this and stick it up. Maybe it'll happen. That's when somebody's just getting a little getting under your skin. Wolverine fan 2. The only way to serve him humble pie is to win the Natty. Until we do that, he will never say that Harbaugh and Michigan are better than OSU. Take a few more on Paul Finebaum. You would have bet the house against TCU, but I think Michigan favored over USC. Finebaum has a narrative that won't change because Michigan falls short has been a good bet. Mark saying that OSU, PSU, never this highly rated, so the Big Ten is on the rise, but the SEC is very high with Alabama waning a bit. Yeah, they don't make the college football playoff. I guess you could say they're waning. They're also getting ready to bring in Texas and Oklahoma, which is, pretty nice addition. Of course, Big Ten's bringing in 2 pretty highly visible schools as well. Detroit, can they run against the SEC? They never have in the past. And the times they beat Florida, Lloyd Carr threw it all over the place, and Spate threw it more than they ran. Until they do that, U of M will get beat. Yeah, I'm not really here to argue that. I think that they're going to have more of a multiple attack when they go up against Georgia in the championship game. They threw the ball a lot against Ohio State until the Buckeyes were finally just worn down and fell over flat. And then Donovan Edwards ran up and down the field on him. It was actually the passing game that got him there. And then Donovan Edwards delivered the knockout blow as Michigan pummeled Ohio State this past year. Or as our guest earlier put it, Garcia Jr., Michigan overtook Ohio State these last 2 years aggressively. JP says Finebaum is so biased. It's funny. The guy is a clown. And folks are seeing that when he reports and says things like that. Oh, yeah. I can remember back in the day, there's Beano Cook. It's kind of the Paul Finebaum before Paul Finebaum. And, Bino Cook famously in 97 said, go ahead and just send the band to Penn State because he thought the Nittany Lions, he loved Joe. Bino Cook loved Joe Paterno. And the only thing he loved more than Joe Paterno was Notre Dame. And every time it would be the off season and Bino Cook would talk about college football, there wouldn't be a minute that would go by that he would either be talking about Joe Pa or he would be talking about Notre Dame. Ron Paulus is going to win 2 Heisman trophies. And then the only other thing, it was really easy for Bino Cook. Talk about Joe Paterno and talk about how great Notre Dame is, and then just look at everybody else's schedule. No, it's all he was Mr. Schedule. And now Finebaum. He's Mr. SEC. It's pretty easy for guys as successful as he is. It's a pretty easy. Whoever the top dog is in the SEC, I'm gonna play that card, and then I'm gonna play the Michigan card. That's it. Let's review. Top SEC team, Michigan card. There's the formula for Paul Finebaum. Michigan has changed the college game these past few years. Credit Harbaugh. I will do that. I think you're right, Richard. What's really impressive, Mark says, besides Michigan, is PSU being on par with the ACC, Pac-10, Big 12 champ, and both Michigan and OSU a cut above of all 3 at the Georgia, Alabama, Natty level. Yeah, the Big 10 East is stacked with Penn State, Ohio State, and the 2-time champ, Michigan. You are right about that. Detroit's talking about Michigan they have better talent than Michigan people. Recruiting and schemes matters against elite SEC team. We beat up on the nobodies in the Big 10. If it don't work, TCU proved that. Well, I don't Michigan threw, they couldn't punch it in with the Philly special on the opening drive. 2 pick sixes. They fumbled at the goal line. Those things were as important as the slippery field and running the football and everything else. But I agree. I agree with you, Detroit, that if Michigan wins the national championship this year, they are not going to take Georgia out and pulverize them in the running game. It will be a blend of McCarthy making big plays with his arm and his feet and the running game. It'll be both of those things. We saw the game plan that Michigan had for Georgia against Ohio State. They didn't turn the ball over against Ohio State. If they didn't turn it over against TCU, they would have beat the Horned Frogs. And then we would have seen Michigan, Georgia 2.0. Now we're going to have to wait to maybe the championship game. Richard saying that I'm trying to corner the love of Michigan market. Yeah, I think, I don't know about cornering it. There's a lot of people that are in the corner, that love Michigan. I'm just trying to be part of it. I'm just in there. I enjoy it. I'm part of it. So there it is. Politics. Finebaum doing that to get the fans talking. Can't knock him for that. Yeah, you're right. That's it. JP want to bring in Stephen A. Smith, saying that his numbers are crashing. He doesn't want to hear what those guys think. They have 0 college football, better high school football experience, none. Yeah, I don't want to hear Stephen A. Smith talk about college football either. I don't want to hear him talk about pro football. I don't mind hearing him talk about the NBA, but, that's the direction that they've gone with their guys. And ESPN is not what it once was. That's it. All right. Don says he loves the show and content. Who's got it better than us? He's got a question. What is my take on the Idaho wide receiver Gatlin Bear? He is design date 8/31. Commitment date? I think Michigan and Boise. The last time I had the temperature check, I'll have to get in with Josh Henschke and see. I did see a story about Bayer the last day or two. And I do know that he's going on a mission for 2 years. So even if he is in the 24 class, he's not going to be around until 26, or would it even be 27? Like 24, 25, the 26 class. So, but yeah, Michigan, Boise. And if you look, an hour's drive from where Bear is in Idaho is an hour's drive away is where Colston Loveland is. So, that, and so Michigan's got a shot. That's my opinion. Michigan's got a shot, 50% shot. I don't like ties. So I'm going to give Michigan a slight advantage. Now, Boise isn't, they get the blue field. What else do they have? They're close. All right. They're in Idaho. But if I was in Idaho, I would want to leave. Unless Idaho had everything with Boise. And, Boise is an afterthought with their football, right now. And, Michigan's on the rise. And they have seen other players that have gone on missions, that have come in and then arrived in Ann Arbor. Michigan has one of their offensive linemen, right? That happens. Is it Gentry? I think Andrew Gentry. So I'm going to put Michigan at a 60-40 advantage over Boise. That's where I'm at. Yeah, that's right. So 60-40, that's where I see it when it comes down to Bear. Now, I'm going to spend the next a couple more hours here, and then I'll probably spend 6, 7, 8 hours watching the Open out in Liverpool, the British Open, as we used to call it. But that after this, the golf majors are done. The Rocket Mortgage Classic is done. So no more golf. It's just baseball. And I have watched the Tigers for the past couple of days against the Royals, and they've been entertaining. But it's now, when I come back Monday, I'm going to ring the bell officially for the dog days of summer. That's when, as much as I've told everybody, hey, let's stay present. Let's enjoy where we're at. Michigan's the 2-time defending champs. They beat Ohio State aggressively the last 2 years to climb over that mountain. They went to Indianapolis and validated it. They went to the college football playoff. Look at the upcoming schedule. Let's just soak it all in. I'm taking the turn where I am ready. I've tried to stay, let's enjoy the day. But now, I'm ready to push fast forward. I'm ready to get there. Account 22 is ready. Mark, going back and talking about Rush Limbaugh, who hated ties. Yeah, well, see, that's, I didn't know that. I'll take your word for it. So there's something that me and Rush Limbaugh have in common. I know Detroit's on, he's looking for some angles. He's out there betting. Nothing wrong with that. Last one says Michigan needs to beat Ohio State even worse this year by 30. I would take, if you could, we'll play the game. I would take a 3-point win right now, but since we're so far off and everything, 30-point plus win does sound a heck of a lot better. A win's a win, but yeah, a 30-point win against Ohio State. Now, so, the golf's going to be over, the majors after this. And so then it'll just be baseball. So then maybe it'll be time to find a couple movies or something. Maybe you're an Oppenheimer fan. Maybe you're interested in Barbie, the movie that seems to be getting, more. I wouldn't have thought that, a movie about Barbie would be all that interesting. But if you're a Michigan fan, maybe more than Barbie, it is Harbie. Maybe Harbie's the movie that you want to see. Swanky Wolverine putting the picture up for. It's not the Barbie that you want to see in pink. It is Harbie in that Michigan blue car with Jim Harbaugh. Jim is everything. Ryan is just third base. Let's do it. Harbie is the movie. Let's do it. Now, here's a few people saying instead of Oppenheimer or Barbie or even Harbie, Sound of Freedom. A great movie. And there's another one, Sound of Freedom. Go see it. Back-to-back recommendations. It sounds good to me. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us here. Thanks to John Garcia Jr. from the Rivals College Football Recruiting Analyst. And Monday, we'll take the turn and we'll see what we can do to fast forward until early September. Until then, everybody have a great weekend. Bye.